Obligatory, this is a throwaway because people involved are on Reddit. I, 29 male, own my own home. This will be relevant later. My mom, 53 female, lives with me as she lost her home a couple years ago. Long story and not very relevant. A year ago, she began dating again and met R, 47 male, and they have been in a relationship for 6 months. When the global issue began, I agreed to allow R and his kids, 14 female and 12 male, to come live with us. Now, I've met R enough times that we know each other as friends, but not close enough. I'm just happy my mom is moving on. He immediately began laying down rules he expects all the kids to follow, and I thought, fair enough, you have rules for your kids, it's not my business. Of course, he put a reasonable curfew for the kids. So now we get to 48 hours ago. I was feeling cooped up in the house and decided to go for a late night run with me, immediately going to bed when I got back. When I woke up in the morning, I went down for breakfast. As I hit the bottom of the stairs, the living room door flew open with R on the other side, red-faced and obviously angry. He immediately shouted, "In here now." I have no idea what's going on, but I assumed it was to do with his kids. So I went in and he slammed the door shut. So I turned and said, "Was there any need for that?" He goes wide-eyed and starts going into an angry tirade. How dare I disrespect his rules? Your stepbrother and sister follow the rules, why can't you? Under this roof, you show me respect. I'm your effing stepdad. Through all this, I'm sitting on the coffee table in disbelief, getting angrier by the second. Eventually, he finished blasting off, but not before his kids and my mom come down to see what's going on. This may be where I'm the a-hole. I stood up and pretty much stood nose to nose. Yeah, it's intimidating behavior, my first mistake. And I just let rip. I asked him how dare he talk to me this way in my house. I'm a grown man. I do not follow your rules under my roof. If you can't handle that, then get out. You aren't my stepfather. You are my mother's boyfriend, and we will never have the sort of relationship you clearly misled yourself into thinking we do. I expect an apology. He packed his things and took his kids back to his own home. My mom said there was no need for me to be that nasty and accused me of going too far for embarrassing her boyfriend in front of his kids and undermining his parenting. Now she's giving me the silent treatment. I'm going to answer some questions before I update. 1. Yes, R was well aware when moving in that it would be my house he was staying in, as he asked me upon moving in about rent and such. However, I'm on a good wage and more than capable of covering household expenses, and did not charge him for staying as they were only staying until the global issue is over. 2. I'm not kicking my mom out. She needs a therapist, not a change of address. She and R have been casually dating for nearly a year, but started getting serious at the beginning of lockdown. Since it was a growing relationship, my mom suggested we all lock down together so we could all get to know each other better. 3. To those who were curious about my parents' marriage and how it ended, Dad was controlling and manipulative, and he hid it well, just like he hid his girlfriends. There were no fights or divorces. He was my dad and I do care, but he played away with the wrong woman and paid the ultimate price on her car bonnet. It's sad, but I can't be angry about it. 4. R may have actually had to pay a bill, as it seems his door slamming has dislodged the door jamb from the drywall and brought down a nearby wall sconce. Update. After finally talking with my mother, she apologized. She wasn't fully aware of what had gone on and thought I had been the one to start the argument. We spoke about R's behavior and agreed this wasn't someone she needed in her life and that she needed a therapist. Rather than come himself, R decided to send his elderly parents around to talk with us. I was polite but made it clear I wouldn't be discussing this with them and instead asked them about the children's current situation. In short, they are back with their mum and she's aware of R's behavior. She's not happy with him. R seems to be laying low for now and knows his relationship with my mum is over. Finally, I decided against charging for damage The simple fact is getting him away from my family as quickly as possible is worth more than a door frame and a cheap wall sconce. I'm so glad your mother has a son like you in her life, OP. Thank you for recognizing that she's still traumatized and she needs therapy. The last thing she needs in her life after her relationship with your father is someone like R. R sounds toxic enough to raise red flags. And it's a good thing that you saw it and you sent him packing never to be seen again. Your mother deserves better than R, and I hope she finds that partner. You did the right thing standing up to R, because if you hadn't, you would have become a teenager having curfews in your own house. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole OP. What grown-ass man tries to parent another grown man, and one he's not even known for a year? If he had helped raise him from childhood, maybe it would be understandable that he thinks you should treat him like a father figure and follow his rules. But again, you're a grown man and can decide your own rules. LOL, your mom should dump him and be glad that she dodged a bullet. I'm 32 and I don't even have a curfew anymore when I go to visit my parents in their home, my childhood home. I'm a grown woman, my daddy doesn't tell me what time I can come home anymore. If I come home late, I obviously enter as quietly as possible and try to avoid disrupting others. But nobody gets on my ass about what time I came home. Sometimes if my dad can't sleep and is lying in bed awake, he'll come downstairs when he hears me come in. And he'll make a snack and we will sit at the kitchen table and chat. It's very cozy. Nobody's bellowing, "Where the hell have you been, young lady? It's 2 a.m. at me." You don't discipline grown-ass people the way a parent does with a child, but offering support, advice born from wisdom and filling an emotional gap that needs to be filled when wanted are all parenting moves that can be done by older adults to younger ones without being wrong. I've heard and read too many "my first boss was more like a father to me than my own father" to believe that every adults everywhere don't benefit from a parental figure in their lives just because they passed the magic age number. But in this case, the whole thing is super weird. Mr. 47 is an a-hole. Story 2. I'm 27 male, a dad to an amazing 3-year-old boy. Unluckily, he is the result of a one-night stand with a girl, 25 female Julie. For the first 7 months, I never even knew he existed. One day I got a message on Facebook from Julie telling me I had a son. I think I passed out there and then on the spot. I was living with my parents at the time and we arranged for Julie to come by in the next few days with the baby. I'm not going to lie, I didn't do much talking that day. I was still in shock. Through my mom and her talking, it turns out her parents had pressured her into having the baby and raising it. But Julie couldn't do it anymore and didn't want the baby anymore. After lots of talking and tears, my parents and I made a plan of what to do next. Lawyer, DNA test, and courts. After all that and a few months, I ended up with full custody of our son. It wasn't easy, but with the help of my parents, we coped. For about a year, I had a bit of contact with Julie, but she never visited. I would send pictures when she asked how he was doing, but she gradually stopped messaging as time went on. Me and Julie never had a formal child support payment plan in place. Call it ego. I just didn't want to go that route, and she would give me a little bit for food and diapers when she could. But that dried up when the messaging stopped. There were times when I messaged Julie if she could help out and she always agreed, but she never came through, and then stopped replying to me at all. After months of no contact, my parents convinced me that I need to go back to court and get a formal order put in, which is what I did. This is where the shit hit the fan. I just got a flood of messages from Julie telling me how I'm wrecking her life and not letting her move on, how I'm just as bad as her parents trying to force her to be a mom, and how she never wanted to be a mom in the first place, and never pushed her to be a mom to our son. I just think that she needs to help out sometimes. Am I the a-hole for forcing her to pay? You're not the a-hole at all, OP. I really do feel for Julie, of course, because she didn't want to be a mother in the first place. But she is now, so she has to face the fact that she has that responsibility now. Besides, if it were the other way around, I would expect the father to at least pay support for the child. so the same thing should be expected of her. She may have felt pressured or forced into having the baby, but her baby is safe and loved. Sending you some financial support is a small price to pay for her freedom. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. While I have some sympathy for Julie, in the end her child wanted or not is partly her responsibility. The interests of the kid comes first in a situation like this. She doesn't need or have to play mom. She just needs to pay up and make sure the kid has a roof over their head and food in the fridge. Julie is 25 years old, not a scared teenager. You don't create a new life and then abandon it because it gets inconvenient for you. You cannot move on from having a child. Not the a-hole. Raising children is expensive. Julie's parents sound like a-holes as well, but anyone who thinks they can have a child, abandon him and have no financial consequences is out of their damn mind. I'm also a custodial parent, and regardless of gender, the non-custodial parent should pay what the court decides as fair, which they do using both parents' income and then making that proportional to custody. You're second-guessing because you're a decent person, but even more than most would because she's a woman. We as a society aren't as used to women being the ones to pay support. If she wants to terminate parental rights, she can start the process for that. That's the bare minimum of taking responsibility further for her. Until she does, it's on her to participate financially in raising her child. You're not the a-hole. Story 3. I know upon reading the title alone, many of you will just call me an a-hole, and you might be right. But I want to explain myself first. My wife and I were together when we first met in high school. We were able to maintain a long-distance relationship throughout college and stayed true to each other. I truly thought we were inseparable. She gave birth to a boy 12 years ago, and since then things changed drastically. My son unfortunately has behavioral problems and it's been very difficult raising him. He throws temper tantrums, gets in trouble in school frequently, refuses to listen to my wife and I. As a result, my wife and I started having disagreements about how we should handle him. That is, whether to punish more, let him get his anger out, etc. This created a wedge between us that kept getting wider. We both resorted to drinking more and wanting to be away from each other as much as possible to get some relief. We started having more arguments, and eventually it became so obvious that our marriage was deteriorating that family members started questioning it. So the topic of divorce came up and we both decided to go through with it. When I first told my son about it, he cried endlessly, then started throwing fits about how unfair it was. I completely understand that a divorce is hard on any child, but the intensity of his fits kept growing. Since my wife and I are separated, not yet divorced, and because she can't tolerate our son that much, we agreed that he gets to spend most of the week with me, unfortunately. So I see him a lot and have to put up with his yelling far more than she does. Last Friday, he started asking if my wife and I forgave each other, and I told him divorce is happening, like it or not. He started crying and I got mad and told him, "Buddy, want to know why we are getting divorced? Because of you. We were happy before you were born. But you always act bad and get in trouble, so stop arguing with me when you caused it. You have nothing but yourself to blame." This devastated him, and I did apologize, but I told him there was some truth to what I said. However, since then he's been more quiet and behaved. Even my wife, who was with him over the weekend, said he was much better. So yes, I think I'm the a-hole for telling him he was the reason we are getting divorced. But in some ways, I don't think I am, because maybe it was just something he needed to hear. Now for some comments. I really hope this is fiction. You're the a-hole. Your son is 12. Have you two as his parents had him assessed or sent him to counseling, etc.? Honest to God, this is disgusting. Realistically, if you were both unable to communicate and make decisions about your kid together, that is on you and is ultimately the reason for the divorce. Get your shit together and start helping your kid. You're the a-hole. I emotionally raised my younger sibling because my parents were just like you. My sibling was an aggressive, ill-behaved, oppositional child, and my parents grew distant because of my sibling. And let my sibling know, and as a result, my sibling has very little to do with either parent. Apologize to your son. It's not his fault the two of you fight. Also get your child screened for learning disabilities or behavioral disabilities. My sibling was acting aggressively because they have 2 processing disorders and high-functioning autism. You're the a-hole. Why didn't you seek professional help for your son when nothing you tried worked? Why did you two not formalize a plan together so that the parenting was consistent from both parents? Your marriage deteriorated because you and your wife stopped working on your marriage. You two avoided each other and drank because you two didn't want to sit down and work on the issues. You two chose to let the whole parenting thing drive a wedge between you two. It wasn't your kid's fault that his parents can't communicate with each other and seek professional help to assist them to understand and parent their son better.